Yeah, you had to get out of your comfort zone. You had to get into a zone where it was very challenging for you. You can never let your guard down. You had to put your nose to the grindstone and keep going. Otherwise, you'd fall behind and you'd be stagnant one day. There's just a lot of pool builders that went out of business because when the things did slow down, there was no business for them. Whereas we were getting still quite a few referrals, and that's what kept us going.
This is episode 143 with Skip and Jeff Ast of Shasta Pools. Enjoy!
Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast.
So living here in the Valley and running a pool service company, we know that Shasta has a huge footprint, and congratulations on building an extremely successful company. It's a real pleasure to be here with you guys.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. So today we want to know a little bit more of how things got started with Shasta. So we are joined with Skip. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what things looked like in the very beginning of building Shasta.
Okay. Well, it really goes back, but my brother worked for a home builder named Pete Shields, and they were building, maybe 15, 16 homes a year. And they were installing pools in probably a majority of them, 12 to 13. And at the end of the first year, which was 1966, they decided that they wanted to go into the pool business full time rather than just in the homes that they built. And so at that time, I had a really good position with another pool company in town, and basically had total ownership over it and all, and making great money. And Bob called me one day and said, Skip, we're going to go into the pool business as part of the home building thing, and would you consider about coming over and helping give leadership to it and all? And that was a real struggle for me because they were just getting started, and I said, well, what about the compensation and other things? Well, they had to cut my compensation about 50%. I remember it was 50%. What else? I lost my medical insurance and everything. They couldn't afford to get that or anything, so I had to give that up. And anyway, my wife and I prayed about it, and the more we did, the more I thought about getting in it, more passion I had to getting in it, and willing to take all the risks that it took to get in it, And so I made a commitment to Bob and Pete. The 7th of April, 1967, I become an employee of Shasta Pools. That year, they up to that time, they had built 13 pools. And by the end of that year, from April on through the end of the year, we ended up with 200 pools. And in the following year, we went to 585, and in 69, we built just a little over 1,000 and was the first pool company in town to ever reach 1,000 pools. And from there, everything else is history, that we went on from there, and we are what we are today.
Wow, that's incredible. And what was your main role when you came into Shasta? Were you in sales?
I think the main thing was that I had an attitude that I never wanted one dissatisfied customer, and I wanted to astonish every one of them that I went on. And up until the end of 1969, I just about worked myself to death because I was the only one that I thought could make that happen. I laid all the pools out myself, met with the customer, told them what we were going to do and how to do it and what they could expect. Most of the companies in town were taking 60 to 90 days to build a pool, and I wanted to get in there and get in and out of it. And so once I explained to the customer what I was going to do, I said, the only thing you have to do is you're going to have to trust me because I want paid for all the pool up until the last payment is made, and that gives me the ability and the authority to move your pool straight through without having to stop and go on payments. And for the most part, most of them accepted that, and we did. We built pools. We would have a customer swimming while other companies were just starting to dig their pools or put shotcrete in their pools or something like that. And so we began to build a fairly good reputation at that point in time. And like I say, everything else went on from there.
Sure. I appreciate you sharing all that. That's a really cool story. What are some of the biggest innovations that, from 1969 to say now? I know you told a story about the first time he saw somebody on the side of the road, doing concrete.
Yeah, I was going to say shotcrete was probably one of the biggest, scariest, riskiest transition we made, because everybody was traditionally used to that, what we call dry gunite. I happened to be going over to California one day with my wife, and we had a meeting at Campus Crusade for Christ. And before we got there, I just happened to see this farmer lining his ditch with concrete, out of a hose and all. And I thought to myself, boy, if you put a air nozzle to that, you could really turn that into shotcrete. And I just kind of left it at that. And then when I got back home, I started fiddling with it and went and gambled getting a concrete pump and all that. And most of the guys that worked for me, they were skeptical of it. They didn't want to work for it. But this one old fellow, L.P. Perkins, you remember him, Jeff? He went along with me, and we went out there together and got the thing to happen and made it happen. There were so many advantages of using that over dry gunite that everybody that was down on us and it'll never work and all that kind of thing, one by one, they were making that transition. Today, as it was many years ago, probably I'd say at least 90% of the pools being shotcreted across the United States are probably the what we call wet mix, the versus the dry mix.
Wow. Right. And so, did that catapult Shasta Pools into being a volume pool builder because you could shoot these pools more efficiently?
Yeah, well, it helped, but I think the main thing is it was become a good profit center for us. We were now in kind of a subcontractor mode within the company. Just to give you an idea, on a regular dry gunite, we had to use 7 or 8 men total to make it happen. The investment in a total rig with what we called a 600 compressor and all was in the neighborhood of $100,000. With the shotcrete rig, we could get by with 3 men, and there was a total at that time about $40,000 investment. So, there was some great tangible advantages of doing that. The only downside of it was at the time there was a risk, and everybody was against it instead of for it and all. And once we started doing it and the men loved it, they didn't have to shovel out rebound anymore. And I know you don't understand that term, but it was a tedious job to do that. Then you had to pick it up afterwards and get it away, and just a lot of extra work. Whereas when they started the shotcrete thing, it was just clean and in and out, no problems and all that kind of thing. And so it just kind of expanded on its own reputation as time went on.
Right.
Yeah. And you controlled a lot of that from in-house, right? Because you wanted to make a quality product, so you were running a lot of in-house crews?
Yes, at that time we were doing almost probably 80-90% of our own work, maybe more.
Yeah. What was the reason behind that?
Well, at the time, whether the volume that the company was growing, we just couldn't get enough qualified subcontractors to do the work, and we were being put off. If I called in a shotcrete gunite job in today, it sometimes was 30 to 60 days before they could get to it. It was just a law of supply and demand taking advantage in the supply part. And so I just decided that I can't stand that. If I'm going to build Astonishing customers, I can't make them wait 3 months to build a pool.
Yeah. That's
and
awesome.
so for that reason, we got into some of it ourselves and was able to pay the men good enough where we always had other men knocking at our door to be the next in line to come to work because we could take advantage of the profits the other company was making based on just driving the production capabilities.
And did you guys always set out to be a volume builder?
No, we never did. It really was never my real ambition to say, boy, we're going to be number one. We're going to build more pools than anybody else. My mindset was I just want to, just what I mentioned before, astonish our customers. And when that happens, everything else seemed to take place. We would get leads coming in that we couldn't handle. We'd have to tell customers it'd be 2 months before we could even get to you. And so we simultaneously had to expand our sales division. You know, there wasn't experienced salesmen, many out there anyway, but so that meant that we had to train most of them, and that was a very tedious, laborious job, especially at that time, in trying to build the pool at the same time and all. But through it all, by God's grace, we did it and moved forward, kept the momentum going.
Right, because I imagine when you're a volume builder, you're not there yet, but you're having to perfect logistics processes. You're managing subcontractors. You're, trying to get new members to be on the team that, are qualified, or you train them to be a nozzleman in doing the shotcrete or doing the plumbing. And also pools are advancing with time. So you're a volume builder, but things are changing. So, were you guys really good at building processes and different things like that and managing the team? Because you're setting the expectation with the customers. Are you doing the same with the team as well?
Yeah, you had to get out of your comfort zone. You had to get into a zone where it was very challenging for you. You can never let your guard down. You had to put your nose to the grindstone and keep going. Otherwise, you'd fall behind and you'd be stagnant one day. There's just a lot of pool builders that going out of business because when the things did slow down, there was no business for them. Whereas we were getting still quite a few referrals, and that's what kept us going.
I love that. Got that grit. And just looking at your Western shirt and all the Western stuff around here, are you a big Western movie fan?
Oh, I'll tell you the truth, I never go to movies, very rarely.
Oh, like the old, like John Wayne. You like John Wayne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think it's my mom that likes mostly Western. She's the one that decorates.
Oh, yeah.
She?
Well, because I love Westerns. I love John Wayne.
If you was talking to my wife, she'd keep you entertained on that subject for the next hour.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
So how did things get to the point where you guys actually started A&A Manufacturing and Xcel Surfaces? What did you have to go through in order to say, you know what, let's just do our own thing? What happened to make that happen?
Well, the transition we made there was really driven by an outside manufacturer. The name was SwimQuip at that point in time. We were installing almost all of our pools with what we call the Turbo Clean Head, which is a floor cleaning head that cleaned the whole pool and had its big advantages over random cleaners that you had to take in and out and fix and all that kind of thing. The only downside of it was that I would get constant calls from somebody that, not really complaining, they were just wondering why can't we do something with the steps in the seat, because they'd go out in the morning, especially after one of our infamous dust storms in the summer, and their steps and seat and all that be totally black with dirt. At that time, I asked SwimQuip to make small heads for the steps and seat, and they didn't want to have anything to do with that or get into it. So a fellow by the name of Andy Blake that was working for us then, he worked for us, Jeff, 40 years?
About 40 years.
And he has now passed away, but anyway, he had this mechanical mind about himself, so he began to toy with it and come up with this little head that would fit into the steps. And so we got into that and started using the step heads and have a full cleaning. And then finally it evolved to the point where say, hey, if we can do the steps, let's do the whole pool and manufacture them themselves. And that's what really drove us to get into A&A Manufacturing.
Very cool. Thank you. And Xcel, is that a similar story?
Pain.
Xcel,
Pain.
yes.
The word pain.
Pain.
That's why Xcel Surfaces got created. We were using a product at the time that was a very successful product for deck coatings. The manufacturer changed formulas, and all of a sudden, all our decks started remulsifying. And
What does that mean?
it turned to mush.
Oh, okay.
It was hard one day,
Really?
turned to mush the next day because they changed the formulas on it. So they decided they were not going to stand behind that because we already had, thousands of decks out there done. And that was a little costly adventure for us. So kind of like with A&A where somebody refused to do something, so we'll come up with it our own. We said, man, why can't we just do this and control the formulas, control the quality ourselves? And that's how Shasta Deck or Xcel Surfaces got created out of pain. And we started doing our own manufacturing. Andy ran that also for quite a while.
I was going to say, you said Andy is a pretty big hire, right? Or a pretty big part of it.
Andy Blake?
Yeah.
Yeah, Andy was Dad's kind of right-hand man when things started really taking off. That guy had such a mind, a manufacturing mind, but also entrepreneurial at the same time, and just a workhorse. That guy was incredible. I mean, at one point in time, he was running Xcel Surfaces, A&A Manufacturing, new pool construction, customer care, and what else? Oh, and the maintenance shop. He was running them all. He's running them all.
Damn, did he ever sleep?
And
no weekends.
He was just a machine, methodical machine. He was a big, huge part of this company for many, many years. He taught me a lot. In fact, he's one of the ones that because a lot of people can get intimidated by the Ast family, and the Ast boys, especially growing up. We weren't the shyest kind of guys around. And so I still remember this one time that Andy really turned my perspective on life and how my life was affected by business, because I was probably in my early 20s. Started working when I was 11, so it felt like I've been around the company for a long time, but early 20s, and I had a company truck and stuff like that, and I was a terrible driver, just a terrible driver, and I kept getting tickets and stuff like that. So they finally came into Dad, insurance company, and said, "Hey, you got to talk to your son, or he can't drive anymore." For the company. And so, but Dad's a super good delegator. Andy was kind of my direct boss, so he gave Andy the chore of meeting with me, and basically it was a good 30-second meeting. Jeff, improve your driving or you're out. You're done at Shasta. Wow. It didn't matter who I was, nothing like that. He said, "You're done if you would improve it." And that just woke me up to like, hey, you know what? I can't do this anymore. That guy was amazing. He was amazing. He taught me actually more than Dad did.
Yeah, he was one of these real fair guys that would go the extra mile with you. But the minute he saw that you were violating those or didn't care, boy, he knew how to take care of you immediately.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't waste any time.
Not a lot of time wasting there.
That's really cool.
very
That's
cool.
a special kind of person and their presence to teach you responsibility, because there's a lot of people that probably teach it, but they have to show you as well. You have to look at them and they're leading by example. But that's crazy that you guys had somebody so influential around here like that. So thank you for sharing that. So I'm a little bit curious because I don't know as much about Xcel Services, but I'm assuming that is not a cheap or easy venture to take on that or A&A. That must be a huge expense to get people in creating prototypes and different things like that. And then you go into distribution. I mean, this facility is insanely huge. What goes into something like that? I mean, because you're probably having to outsource, scientists.
Yeah, well, we use separate labs, stuff like that, and get testing done there. We're not going to take that on. But yeah, it's a huge investment. Paint machines. I mean, if you go out in the warehouse, you're going to see this paint machine that's almost over a story tall. Blending machines, so forth like that. Yeah, we had to learn all that. And that was, again, Andy played a huge part on that because Andy he grew up in the manufacturing business. I think he worked for Sperry, didn't he?
Yeah.
Sperry before he came to Shasta, yeah. So he knew that methodical, how everything had to be methodical. But it did. It was a huge investment, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of investments for A&A and Xcel that we had to do. But, if you put the business plan together and you could see the potential ROI in it, but you just had to have the capital to be able to do that and then be very patient on getting it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we're going to move on, but I really want to know, from being such an established company for so long, being so innovative, how do you keep your team motivated through all of that? Because that seems to be one of the most difficult things, is where, the people at the top, you're not sleeping and you're constantly innovating, but how are you keeping everybody that, because you're delegating a lot of this stuff to, how are you keeping them motivated through that? Because I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear something on that.
Well, I think, and from my own perspective, we innovated what we call KRAs, key result areas. If you were going to shoot a pool for me, okay, there were certain parameters that you had to go by, and then you got measured by that on how well you performed. And of course, that had a lot to do with driving your overall compensation and other benefits of the company. So people weren't left out in the wild, so to speak, to say, I wonder if I really am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or if I wonder if I understood what they were doing. And that's not to say that didn't happen occasionally, but we did our best in defining, again, those key result areas. What do we really want to see as an end result of doing this, doing that, or being involved in this? We don't want to be doing out there an exercise of utility. We want every move to count towards our end results that are profitable for everybody. And so we had to kind of pretty much define those, and some of them went well. Others you'd fall on your face and wonder why you ever did it. But I don't think there's any company that ever succeeds if they don't go through something that they finally say, boy, why did I ever start this?
Yeah.
And
sure.
But through it all, you gain your momentum that you want, and once you do that, it's pretty hard to infringe upon it from the outside, because of the track record you have.
Right. That is pure gold for
Yep.
anybody listening. I know that there's some owners that would say, you get paid, that is your thank you from the company. Do you think that is a failure, that people want more than I pay you? They want to know that they are actually getting better?
The one thing that I think Shasta's done fairly well, don't do it perfect all the time, is we knew that the company was huge. We knew it was growing and so forth like that. So how do you stay on the edge of growing a very large company, but keeping it small mentally was I think the key. And I think we still strive to do that today. If you could talk to a lot of the employees, they'll say, Shasta's still a small family business. And that's super key. People feel valued when they feel close to family.
Isn't that hard to stay humble when your commercials pop up on TV and you've been around for 55 years? And I'm only speaking because I don't know. And I feel like just me as a human being I think that's a struggle for anybody, professional athletes, all these things. When they talk about being humble, you don't really know until you're in the limelight. And you guys definitely are. I mean, because if you were walking around here, with
Boasting.
your boasting, that could kill the culture.
It would totally kill the culture. But I think it's something that Dad taught us a long time ago. And that's just, humility is a major power. People don't look at it as a very powerful thing. You know, people talk about pride a lot. Pride's a powerful thing. Well, we don't. We kind of look at it the opposite, because the scriptures will tell you pride's a negative.
How you fall, yeah.
Humbleness is power. And that's why Dad's always taught us, don't say a lot. I mean, there's this real struggle for us to even do this interview, because we don't like to get into the limelight. We just don't like to do it. Because, I mean, the thing that really drives us is where God says, hey, do everything, be therefore perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. And that's the strive thing that we try to do. And I don't want to preach or anything like that, but that's how Dad started the business, how Uncle Bob started the business, based on some real strong biblical values. Mm-hmm. And we've just kept to that.
Well, I think that's really important, and that is your story, and it's important for, I think, anybody struggling, that you can't do it alone. You all by yourself is very difficult. You need somebody that's going to have your back through thick and thin, because especially your journey and everybody's journey is difficult in some way, shape, or form, and you definitely need something to help you get through that. So definitely appreciate all of that. I know it's a struggle to be on the show, but I want you to know that this is truly, people don't pay to listen to this or anything like that, that this is really helping people that are struggling and really need that mentorship from a company that knows how to get through adversity and different financial crises and different things like that. So just want to say again, we appreciate your time.
Pentair has a plan to keep your pool sparkling clean. To do that, they recommend using 3 layers for optimal sanitization. Layer 1. Help kill the germs in the water by adding chlorine or a salt system. Layer 2. Neutralize the germs with UV light, because the UV light plus salt or chlorine neutralizes harmful bacteria. And Layer 3. Automate your system with a water chemistry controller to monitor and adjust pH and sanitizer levels automatically. So to recap, Layer 1, chlorine or salt. Layer 2, UV light. Layer 3, manage with automation. All 3 layers equal a happy, clean pool. To learn more on what Pentair has to offer, visit pentair.com or click the link below.
A&A was recently now sold, right, in 2020. How did that come about?
Actually, it probably came about the simple fact that we had no intentions of selling A&A. It's been such a long part of us. It is a good profit center. So the thought process started when Hayward bought Paramount.
Yeah.
Actually. But then got a phone call from one of the Pentair people, started talking to them, and they were very, very interested in selling A&A. And we just got to the point to where, even though we're building a lot of pools and stuff like that, I mean, people that have been in the pool industry that are probably listening to this podcast know that the pool industry isn't as profitable as consumers think it is. Everybody thinks you're probably making a 40% margin when you're normally dealing with 18 to 20% margins.
Right.
So we couldn't grow. We didn't have the capital at the time to say, okay, how to take A&A to the next level, because we were peaked out. I mean, they needed molds, and so these molds are $100,000 a piece and stuff like that. So it all worked out very well for both.
They brought new dynamic to it.
To A&A, oh yeah, they're obviously much more suitable to grow the business. I mean, Pentair's a multi-billion-dollar company, so they've been able to bring a lot more to the table for A&A that we just wouldn't have been able to do.
Yeah, we had exhausted our abilities across the United States. We pretty much saturated the United States with pretty good market share with our pool cleaning, and then through the Master Pool Guild and other independent pool builders. And that's about as far as we could go. But when Pentair come in on the loop, then I could see then where A&A would be much more advantageous to them to having it than us to have it, because they already had operations in Brazil, Africa, several in South America, Hawaii, and so forth, you know.
Right.
And so it just made sense then to sell that part of the business and leave them take it over because they could make it. They had much more advantages than we would have. We've exhausted ours by what we did through the United States. They had the whole world at their disposal because they had operations in every major part of the world that had something to do with the pool business.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Shasta itself kind of did the same thing all the way for a long time, you know, as you've innovated and grown. And then the economy took a big hit in 2008, right? So what kind of adjustments do you think Shasta had to make during that time?
It was probably the most difficult thing that I've gone through, except for maybe this year, which I'm sure we'll talk about, because it was like a faucet being shut off. I mean, it was when you had literally hundreds of pools under construction and sales and stuff like that, and all of a sudden the faucet gets shut off and all those cancellations and so forth like that. And it kind of hit, I think it affected a lot of people. People didn't have a grasp of it, of what really was happening, because I remember sitting around this table right here and saying, okay, you know, this is going to be a 18-month typical recession, so forth like that. We were all talking like that. So how do we hold on to everybody, get through this thing? Then a year goes by, another year goes by, another year goes by. Well, by 2009, end of 2009, we had to make some really hard decisions. And Shasta went from 973 employees down to 385.
Wow.
Huge. I mean, hardest thing I've ever had to done. I had to lay off guys that I've worked with for 20-something years.
Wow.
Good friends of mine, stuff like that had really dedicated their entire lives to Shasta. And to say goodbye was very, very hard. We had to really tighten our belts with the overhead that we have and so forth like that. We had to really tighten our belts. That was a very, very, very tough time.
What was probably the biggest lesson you learned in that? You know, that moment where like, if things get back on track, we're never going to do this again, or we're going to be better at that.
I think the one thing that I would say now, because we had to make I personally had to make some hard decisions on trying to get costs down. One of those decisions was that whatever we were subbing out, besides all the in-house that we were doing, I made a decision that, hey, during this recession, I'm going to just go to one sub per phase, one sub. And so at the time, we had like 7 excavators working for us, 4 plumbers, or 3 plumbers, different subs, all kinds of varieties, 3 different deck guys, stuff like that, and said, hey, whoever can give me the best prices, you're going to get all my work. That was a hard decision, but I think it was a necessary decision at the time because it kept some of the subs surviving that got the work. I'm not sure if we hit another recession. Not sure I would do that again because it was very difficult to give up those relationships you had for so long. And that, I think, is one of the backbones of Shasta, is trying to keep very, very long-term relationships. There's relationships I know that I have right now that I'm probably paying a little bit more than what the competition's paying. It doesn't matter to me. They take care of us. We work hand in hand together. So I'm willing to do that. So if we had another terrible recession, I probably wouldn't. It's one thing I wouldn't do because I can't afford to. You got those relationships are everything.
Right.
Thank you.
What do you remember about that time?
Oh, yeah, it was a terrible time to have to do things that took you completely out of your comfort zone. Like Jeff had mentioned earlier, there was people we had to say bye-bye to that we've been like this for 20-some-odd years. But it was either that or lose your company, one of the two. Mm-hmm. And so you couldn't do that. But not good news, but they understood why we had to do that. You know, it wasn't a matter of selfish intentions or anything like that. It just you had to give up some things if you wanted to retain your business.
Yeah. So Skip, in 2018, you had the opportunity to promote Jeff as president. And how was that for you in the transition?
Well, you know, it's been going real good in my opinion. It's biggest struggle that I have is with myself and turning loose of things that I've been accustomed to having my arms around for 52 years. But it's been going pretty good. I have no complaints at all, and people understand that I'm not going to be around here forever, and most people at 83 years old are not still working, and that type of thing, and so. But I think it's been going pretty smoothly.
I mean, it wasn't like it was an overnight thing. We were been discussing it for quite some time.
Was that something you wanted?
I actually hadn't even thought about it a lot. I really hadn't. Then Mike Wagner, who was our CFO at the time, started challenging, I think, Dad and I on, hey, transition, succession. And so it was, it was like that happened in 2018, but I think we were discussing it from 2015. And so when it happened, there was a lot of planning that already had gone into it, made it very clear to everybody that it was going to be a very slow transition, not a problem at all. The more dads around, my perspective, the more dads around, the easier it is for me to take the role, because I have an incredible example of success right next door to my office.
Sure.
And so that's just an invaluable amount of knowledge and wisdom is with Dad. So, more power to him is coming in.
Did you envision handing it over to your son at one point?
Well, yes, I always had that envision, you know what I mean? Knew that someday somebody would have to take it over, and Jeff was the most likely, ideal, best prospect for that, with the longevity, with the experience, and everything else. And there's a certain amount of confidence that it builds in a person that is delegating or transferring that responsibility to somebody else to understand and know their background, and when there's something that flares its ugly head up, you can say to yourself, well, I know he's taking care of that one way or another. I may not understand it at this point, but I have the confidence to know that he's taking care of it through the chain of command or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and that's the key point of just having the confidence to know that something's going to happen, and you're not left out there wondering and worrying about, geez, I wonder if they really know what they're doing, how to do it, how to get it done, or anything like that. And when you can divorce yourself from those kind of thoughts, you have the word confidence that takes its place, and that's what builds and moves forward.
Awesome answer. Thank you.
I'm curious, Jeff, how do you feel about having a work-life balance? Are you pretty much obsessed with work?
No, I'm not near as obsessed with work as Dad is. Dad, his work ethic is, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I do work a lot. I found a key many years ago of you gotta have that balance. I mean, if you become obsessed, something else in your life, because everything's not about everything, even though it goes against the Ast grain, everything's not about work. It's I got kids. I got grandkids that I just absolutely adore going to see, and that's a real priority for me. They live in California. My grandkids live in California right now, and so I try to get over there at least every other month, because that's a big deal for me. So you got to have that balance. I mean, you can become obsessed. I can easily work 16, 18 hours a day if I wanted to. I have to make myself stop, go to the gym, do something like that. I love to ride motorcycles.
Really?
That's kind of my therapy. I'll just get on my bike and just ride a little bit, because that's...
What kind of bike do you have?
I have a Harley. 2000, just bought a new one. It's the big one. I forget what it is.
Ultra Glide?
It's an electric glide.
Road Glide.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so that I get out on that and ride a little bit. But, the business is always around, though, especially with technology today. You can't get away from it. You've got to learn. I'm not the kind of person that can just cut it off. Like, if I go on vacation, I am not going to cut that work and separate it. I am going to get up in the morning. I am going to check my emails. I'm going to do that because that I can just feel more comfortable that way. So everybody's going to have their own way to handle it. I handle it that way.
I love that you share all of that, because at the end of the day, we are in the pool business, which is the lifestyle business. And you're talking about visiting family in California, probably have a real grasp on what that means to be in the backyard and be by the fire pit and be by the pool, the types of conversations, the types of smells, the texture of things. And I'm sure that you bring a lot of that, even vacation, bring a lot of that back into the business. And I say from personal experience that sometimes when you're in it, things aren't quite as clear as when I've gone, to Laguna Beach or something like that for a week. And ideas, if you're that kind of person, you're just, everything you see is something that ties back to business. And I'm not saying for anybody to do that, but I like what you're saying is, you could easily work all day, but you have to have some type of balance.
Yeah.
But that's the secret, right? Is a balance of everything.
The pool business is a passion for me. I mean, when you start at 11 and now I'm 58, so there you go. Put the math to it. So, it's a way, even though Dad started the business, I truly believe that God really started this business and he's ordained it for a certain reason. And that's a entire passion of the Ast family that's the true reason why we do this business.
Yeah, everybody has a purpose in life, and clearly pools has been your family's purpose, right?
Yep.
So we'd love to hear where Shasta Pools is at today.
Today, we're probably like every other pool company in the country is feeling something that we've never felt before. I mean, when in March and April, everybody was literally scared to death because leads fell off. This pandemic hit. Nothing. Our sales went down really dramatically. And then when got past the panic and May hit, just everybody said, we're staying home. We're staying home. So how do we make life as great as possible by staying home? And everybody has thought of a pool. Mm-hmm. And so our business, like other businesses across the country, pool businesses across the country, is if you're not up considerably or busy considerably, you're doing something seriously wrong. Because we've had record numbers of leads, record numbers of sales in an environment where the labor market is so terrible. And I don't mean terrible because they're building bad quality pools. There's just a lack of it.
Sure.
And it's just huge. And it's just the perfect storm has hit. And so we're fighting that fight right now. The best thing we can do is continually, we go over this all the time, communicate with your customers, be very honest with them on how long it's going to take, because it is going to take a much longer than, like Dad was talking about earlier, that he separated himself from the competition because they were taking 90 days to build a pool and he could do it in 30. I'd give anything to build a pool in 90 days right now. Anything.
So would the homeowner. Right?
Yeah.
So would the homeowners.
Right.
So it's very critical. We're in a whole different era right now where people are actually starting to realize that the value of a swimming pool, what difference it can make in your life. And it's just not a thing to get wet anymore. It's just not anything to cool off. It is actually an environment. It's an environment to build stronger families, to just really, it's a lifestyle now. It's become a lifestyle, not just getting wet and cool off.
Right. And for you, Skip, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I go a lot by what the home building industry is doing. And the home building industry is improved 17% over last year, and they're moving forward. We have relationships with several of the top builders that we install pools with their mortgages. And so I look quite a bit at the home building industry, what they're doing, because you get all kinds of opinions and statistics of what the professionals say they think will happen. And really over the years, I've found out myself that whatever the home building industry does, because about every business entity there is, from service on through appliances, construction, carpet, or anything else, is tied into the home building industry.
Yeah.
And when the home building industry moves forward, everything moves forward. Home building industry isn't moving forward, everything moves backwards. And so I think it's, to me, just a real barometer to be able to say when you move forward and when you kind of relax or cut back or be careful of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And in Phoenix, the home building industry is, I was told last month that we have more people moving into Maricopa County than any other county in the United States right now.
Wow.
And of course, that is the number one fuel for home building.
Sure.
They see that, and everybody's got to have a roof to live under. So they'll rent an apartment or whatever for a while, but their intention is obviously to get a home. And so a lot of that spurs the home building industry on.
Yeah.
Right.
How many pools have you built? How many have you remodeled? Where are you at with that?
Right now we're pushing close to 88,000 pools since it started.
That's crazy.
87 something. Remodels were probably in the neighborhood of about 37,000 remodels, which remodeling is doing very well right now. So
it's safe to say most people in Arizona have swam in a Shasta pool.
I would think so.
It would be it'd be a fair assessment. We've
Still staying humble.
I mean, we do a lot of commercial pools of our C&O division, Commercial Olympic division. They've done most of the pools, municipal pools, so water parks, everything like that. So they're having a tremendous year, and it's so busy here in Arizona that they've been able to keep most of the business here in Arizona. When it's lean, they'll go to Texas, California, Washington, Colorado, everywhere west of the Mississippi. So you can go to any city, a Phoenix pool. Guarantee you, we've either remodeled it or built it, because Scottsdale, stuff like that. So yeah, we're spread out.
And you have a huge service department too, right? I mean, you got 20 plus trucks out there.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Well, we know you both are extremely busy and just want to say thank you once again. It's been a privilege and an honor being able to sit here and talk about the company Shasta Pools that has been around in the Valley for over 55 years. So I just want to say thank you once again and really appreciate you having us here.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate you coming in.
Hey, Pool Chasers. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. To connect with today's guests, including pictures, links, and resources from everything discussed today, you can visit the episode page at poolchasers.com or click the links below. To connect more with us, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter by searching at Pool Chasers. If you would like to support the podcast, the easiest and most effective way is to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as share the show or your favorite episode with a friend or on social media. Also, you can get early access to each episode by supporting us through Patreon. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for sharing some of yours with us today.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.